This is Great Talks. Hi guys, welcome to Great Talks, and of course you're listening to Ebuka. And I know it's been a while since we had like a very long conversation regarding something, but guess what? We're having it today. And today I want to talk about something that sounds very common, that everybody sort of like knows and everybody sort of like feels, but then I'm not really sure we have come to the full understanding of what we're talking about. So the first thing I want to say is I'll give you a background story, right? I would give you a background story of what happened or two experiences that I had with people or certain group of persons. Now, the first thing is, who do you put your trust in? Do you put your trust in God, or do you put your trust in yourself, or do you put your trust in others? Now, let me give you the background story. So, a couple of months ago, I had the opportunity, the privilege to talk to certain youth or certain young people, basically. So what would happen is I would have one of them come to the front and then talk, and would ask questions about their goals and personal lives. There were no limited questions, although they could decide whether or not they wanted to answer the questions. So there was this, for the sake of this, of course I'm not going to break the person's name. Of course I'm not going to speak the person's name, but just for the sake of this conversation. So this girl sat in front, this young lady sat in front, and it was her turn to answer questions. So I got to a point where I had to ask her if she was single, and she said no, that she was going to get married pretty soon, that she was, with somebody. And the whole people watching or listening to her were all giddy and everything. So then I asked very few preceding questions. I said, "Are you in love with this person?" She was hesitant. She was hesitant a little, but then she said yes. And then I asked her a question if she's comfortable marrying the person. She says yes. And I asked if she trusts the person. And then she said, that she does not understand that question. And then I asked her again, do you love this person? She said yes. Do you see yourself living with this person? She said yes. Do you trust this person? She said yes. And then I asked her, do you trust this person with your life? And she said, you cannot trust man, no. And that just blew my mind. That just blew the whole conversation open. But that's not the point of the conversation. Now, when I asked her if she could trust the person with her life, she gave a little, this one that you're asking me this kind of question. You cannot trust a fool Adam with your life. Why would you trust a man with your life? But then I asked, since then I've been asking myself a question. Why would you marry somebody that you cannot trust with your life? Let's not forget, this is the person you would sleep with in all form and sense of the word sleep. Sleep with, you would sleep with, you would eat with, you would wake up with. You are not scared that uncle will just wake up one day and poison you, because if you are not in the right frame of mind that you can trust this person with your life, then there is no need in marrying this person. Because if I asked you if you can trust the person with your life, you said no. What are you doing in the relationship? And talk more of being in marriage with the person. And I know you can never know somebody in total, but then this is what it is. Now, here is something I understood from that particular conversation. It's called vulnerability. As humans, we always avoid being vulnerable because, we call it in our local palace, see finish, how somebody will just make you see. I remember back then when my cousin used to say something about, I've seen 100. When they say somebody has seen 100 in your hand, it's like the person has seen a lot. So we just avoid, as humans, we refuse, or we usually avoid that kind of conversations or that kind of situations that makes us look very, little, most likely little, and easily, maneuvered and easily broken. I think that's the right word, broken. We usually don't want to come off across broken, because when we come across as broken, we seem weak. So when you are asked the question, can you trust somebody with your life? That means you have to be very vulnerable with this person. You have to show sincere vulnerability, where you can literally tell the person, I cannot live without you. Now, this is not some Titanic, Jack and Rose whatever story, but this is legit. I cannot live without you. Because if I say that I trust you with my life and I'm getting married to you, it means that I cannot live without you. Although, of course, we know how that story will end. Once the person dies, you move on after 2 years. Do you? You move on after 3 years. Do you? Things like that. There was also a movie that I watched, and then the man said something. So he was trying to get a loan to secure his shop. That's the whole hallmark of the story. So he said to the person, to the agent, to the banker who was supposed to help him secure the loan and all that, pay off and all the likes. And then he said to the banker that he lost his wife and the likes. And then the banker said, I know how you must feel. It's been many years right now, and then you still feel the same way. And then the man said, time is not important, or time doesn't matter. I can't really phrase it particularly, so I'm literally rephrasing. So the man said, time does not matter. It would still be as painful as though if I had lost her the day we met or the day we got married. So for him, time was not an essence. When you say you lost somebody or somebody that you keep in your heart, time is not a particular healing word. You just get used to it. But that's not the hallmark. That's not the conversation that we're having now. That's not about death or timing. That's not it. But we're talking about vulnerability here in terms of trust. Now, if you know that you cannot be vulnerable with this person, where the person sees your weakness, there is something I used to say about concept of nakedness. Oh, I love that. The concept of nakedness. And it was a movie that I watched one time called The Visit, produced by Stephen Abiodun. I think that was about 2015 or so. I loved that movie because there was a part in the movie where they talked about concept of nakedness, where you have to literally be open. It is so bad that as humans, we don't want to be seen in totality. And I usually say this, that every human knows the true form of that nakedness. When you look at yourself in the mirror, you see it. So when you see what you don't like, you almost don't want another person, or you almost don't want somebody else to see that part of you that makes you vulnerable. Now, vulnerability is in two senses, particularly in this conversation. So vulnerable in the sense that somebody sees you and sees you at your weakest, sees you at your part, sees you at your part where you are broken, where there is nothing, that there's no steeze and composure. You are crying, there's kata coming out of your nose, you're weak. They can literally see you broken. No, you're not the Superman, you're not the Wonder Woman, you're just there, broken. They can see that. Vulnerability in the other sense is where somebody sees you and wants to take advantage of your vulnerability. That part that is the part that people don't want other people to see. But the disadvantage of that is that you drag that particular part to the good part, because there's always a good part of vulnerability and there's a bad part. The bad part is some people, when you place yourself in a position where people will take advantage of you, that's the bad part. But then there's a good part where you have to be open to your partner. To start with, if you cannot trust your partner wholly, where you can die for the partner. It sounds very, very funny. Yes, when you can die for the partner, when you can give your life, trust your partner with your life, that kind of something. If you cannot do that only, then being scared of being taken advantage of is not your problem, because of course, to start with, you cannot do that to start with. It is not easy. Don't even I'm saying it because this is what it is. It is the truth, and I understand it's not easy, because now here's another thing. People come from past experience. They have been treated in a certain way from past, and that's why they do or act the way that they act. Speaking of that, there is another scenario that happened with a very good friend of mine. In fact, she's like a sister, she's like my best friend, she's everything, she's like my best friend, she's everything. But then there's a particular situation where I needed some funds to do something, I needed cash to do something, and I couldn't ask any other person, of course. And then my lovely girl came into the picture, and I was like, oh, baby girl, what's up? I need some cash, this, that. And before then, we've had a conversation. I'm sure if she's listening to this, she's going to be like, Ebuka, why did you? We've had a conversation about somebody she gave money for a booking of something. Her husband was coming back for something, and then she was booking something for herself and her husband for something, and they wanted to. So the person, basically the agent, so quote unquote, jilted her, then gave her the space and the cash and all the license. I think she later got the cash back or something. And then there was another person that she lent money to, and then the person. So I now, who is like her guy, a guy. I came into the picture. I'm like, oh, I need some funds, and then the conversation started from I need some funds, and then it entered into the part where she started saying she was saying this. Now I wasn't holding it against her, to be honest. I wasn't holding it against her. But here's what I'm trying to drive at, anyways. But then she started by the conversation and said, she said, I'm trying to remember, but I know I have it in my head, so I'm trying to remember. So she said, this I know that you're not like the rest. I know like you're not like any other person that I would give. I know that when you say you will give me back at this certain period, or at this day, or at this time, I know you'll give me back. Unlike so and so. So for me, I should have felt insulted. Let me tell you why. Hold on. Let me tell you why. Because I understand that happened with that person that you've not known at all your life. But this is me and you, or this is you and me, that we've been through, a lot of things, and we've been together for about close to 10 years now, more than 10, if not more than 10 years, way more than 10 years. We've known each other for more than 10 years. I'm like family. I go to her place, her family house. So we're like that, very close. And then all of a sudden, I asked for funds, and then you're making reference, to that person that jilted you. Like, I know you're not that kind of, although she gave it to me, that's my point. She gave it to me, but she's making reference to that. It means that at some point, maybe not visibly or maybe not consciously, subconsciously, that experience kicked in where she gave somebody something and then the person did not deliver, or the person jilted her, and then she's left with me that she's known all her life, and then she's saying this and this, and she knows, of course she knows I'm that, but I felt like there was no need for you to say it, because if you know this person, I'm the person you told the same situation to that happened. So I know what happened with you. But then you had to say that because you were trying to. So I saw it as a means where she was trying to remind herself that I am not like those other persons. So she's going to give it to me either way. And yes, of course, true to my word, I returned it exactly the day and the time I said I was going to return the cash. But then that was my point. That scenario just painted a point in my head where I understand that people go through these things because of past experience. People have jilted you before, and then you've seen that people can be very funny, right? So, and then there are like different kinds where you trust in God and then you trust emotionally. So that spiritual part is in God. In fact, that spiritual part in God, when I said, do you trust God? Do you trust yourself, or do you trust others? Funny enough, you kind of like need the three of them. I'm sure you know that by now. Like, you need to trust God. You also need to trust the human, because what would you do on earth if you don't have a person? That you don't have your person. Even the worst of the worst, those who are like heartbreakers, that the strong-hearted, cold stone, not like cold stone, like, you know what I mean, like cold-hearted and stone-hearted, blockhead humans. Even them, they have people that they be like, okay, I trust this person. Especially, for example, for a hitman or someone who's like a bad guy. In those movies, when you watch those movies, you know that they have like their favorite bodyguard, the man who starts, they trust that person with their life, because he has no choice. He safeguards him everywhere he goes. So you need to trust in people, you need to trust in God. But then that emotional state comes in where you need to understand that people are not the same. But then you have to tread carefully. It is very risky, but it is important. However, consistency, not perfection. I think that's the key word. Consistency gives you the will to trust. Now, the reason why I said that story about my guy, that we have been together for over 10 years. Now, I'm not even saying she doesn't trust me, but I'm just saying when she mentioned that, at least I know you're not like that guy. Because now, I think why she even mentioned it was because I told her, babe, Alpha, give me this, please, I need this, so I'm going to give you so time. And then she said, I know that you're not like this person, so you're going to give it to me. So just send me your account number, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And that was actually the first time. That's the first time, like, we are asking for, like I'm asking for cash and all the likes. That's the first time. So like, so I'm saying why she would say that is because there is a lack of consistency on the path of maybe some other guy that she's met. But then while she's looking at me, she understood that there's a consistency. We've known each other for like more than 10 years, like I said. And there's that consistency where I am not perfect, but you know that I'm consistent with either my word or what I tell you that I'm going to do. I will not tell you other thing and not do the other thing and do another thing. So there's this consistency. So what you're looking out for, what people also usually confuse, what you should not confuse is perfection and consistency. Well, I will say nobody is perfect, but somebody can be consistent. Somebody can be consistent. And while I didn't want to go further into the conversations and all those things, I sort of like know that if we dug deeper into that conversation with the guy that she paid some money and likes, we would see loopholes where it will give you a sense of there was no consistency in certain things. Because in fact, not like if we dug deeper, there was a time we were talking and then she said, oh, this person, the guy had to direct her to some other guy. And then for me, I was like, okay, that already, was screaming red flag, red flag. So sometimes we don't look out for consistency, we look out for perfection, which is wrong, because in trust, consistency is what is important. I always used to say this: truth and trust is almost like the same thing. So when you want to confirm what this is, you need to confirm what the person says if it aligns with the person's action, right? Now you get that what the person says aligns with the person's action. And trust me, it is very okay to be vulnerable to that other person that you call your own, that other person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Because Kanipe, you did not trust in that person. Why are you living with that person? Why do you want to spend the rest of your life with that person? Trust the person with your life. Be vulnerable with the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. And of course, before you do all that, make sure consistency is your watchword and not perfection, and you will do just fine. Thank you for listening. Make sure you like, share, and follow. Thank you for listening. Bye. Au revoir.